Is up? So I don't know if any of y'all like to go to raves or festivals or anything like that, but I knew from 18 to 20, 29, man, I love going to those festivals. I've been to EDC, Lollapalooza, Coachella, all these festivals. And one of the biggest festivals in the world for EDM is Tomorrowland. And I just got my tickets for Tomorrowland. I'm really excited about it. Could cap off a career for me, because as I've gotten older, I realize I don't have energy like I used to have. Man, I sound like an unk these days. But for any rave room people out there, look, check out, I got these Tomorrowland tickets. Pretty dope. Really excited about this. It's coming up in a few weeks, and that's how it looks like. So I wanted to share with you some exciting things I got planned for the summer. But in today's video, I want to talk about, man, why I feel like Western society is cooked. It's a hot topic. But first, I'm going to start about my own personal experiences. So, formerly a AI product marketing manager, got laid off. Then, I traveled to Asia for 4 months. I spent 4 months in Asia, traveling from Manila, China, Vietnam, Taiwan. And I've also traveled to countries before that time, like Italy, Portugal, Germany, like those old Western countries. And obviously I live in the US of A, particularly New York, and born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. And those months in Asia really changed my perspective on the West. There's this famous hedge fund investor called Ray Dalio. I'm not sure if you guys know about him, but he's this American investor, billion investor, and he has this popular concept called the changing of world orders, which is he basically talks about how world powers rise and fall in cycles. And you could think about how Europe used to just absolutely dominate. Germany was killing the game back in the day. Even Japan was absolutely killing the game. And I was thinking even 4 or 5 years ago, this guy is just a boomer. He's just hating on the US. And we the top dogs. USA can't do nothing wrong. But my time in Asia, I've experienced a lot. And I keep saying this in my perspective of, yeah, my American dollar goes a lot further, so I can have a higher quality of life, yada, 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 which is true. But even beyond that, the people I met in Taiwan, they make marginally way less than me, but they still do have a good quality of life. They're safe. They can have really cheap food for $2 or $3. It's really healthy. Great public transportation, high-speed rails. And especially in Taiwan, I think it has more of a capitalistic society, kind of similar to the US. It is really safe. Good cheap food, but I actually did notice it had the most homelessness out of any of the other countries I visited, maybe because of that capitalistic model versus Vietnam and China, where they're more communist, but they have these free market aspects to it. And the Philippines, I was staying in the nicer areas like BGC and Makati, so I didn't see that many homeless people, but maybe there are more homeless people in the outer skirts of Manila. And, you know, I came back from the from Asia. I immediately go to my buddy Justin's wedding, and I just immediately noticed the price inflation of everything significantly. When I needed to call an Uber from the Burbank airport to the wedding venue, which was around an hour drive, it was $130, not pesos, dollars. And that made me really miss VC funded rides. no longer subsidized, just like how AI models are no longer going to be subsidized by AI VCs eventually. The tokens are going to get massively expensive. So we're living the good old days right now. FYI. And then on the ride back, I almost called $175 Lyft to the airport, which costs as much as a plane ticket, but thank God I was able to get an Uber ride. That took 30 minutes for it to be accepted. It only costed $100, which is absolutely insane. And then I go back to New York. I'm in JFK. I take the public transportation back. Mind you, it's around $12 to get back from JFK to Brooklyn if you take the air train and then the subway. Or you could, I looked at Uber, it was going to cost me $130 if I wanted to do the same. It was going to take the same amount of time. And on that Uber ride perspective, for example, that 1 hour Uber ride in LA, at least $100, and in New York, at least $100. 1 hour Uber ride in China, $30. Make it make sense. I don't know. And I was just thinking about the quality of experience, even on the subway. In Asia, the subway rides, super quiet, it doesn't smell like food. People aren't talking really loudly. Maybe in China, some Chinese guys be sneezing and coughing really loudly. But man, I just feel not safe on the subway, even though I'm a guy too. Especially, I've had instances on subway carts where somebody would just like intentionally run into me, just like keep walking. I was like, dude, and then I have to move to a different cart. So I'm like always visually aware when I'm walking in New York City, especially in the subway. Like my head is constantly on a swivel. I'm thinking a lot in terms of, okay, hopefully this guy does not stab me. Hopefully this guy looks sus, I have to move carts. I never feel like that on Asia when I'm in a train cart. And that's just one factor. I also think about meals. I've talked about this at extent in other videos, but I think trying to get a good, costly, healthy meal will usually cost me around $15 if I want to eat at Dig, Chipotle, or whatever slop bowl restaurant you can think of. At least $15. I can do I can go out to eat in any of these Asian countries, cost me $2 or $3 if you're not going to like fancy spots, and it's gonna be a high quality, healthy meal. And I think that's something I really like about Asia because I care about eating healthy. And then I think the biggest thing is housing. And I was watching this, we can watch it together right now actually. I was watching on Instagram, but I prefer to live in these coastal cities like SF or New York because my family's from the Bay Area, and New York is just a great, fun, exciting city, but these are some of the two most expensive cities in the world. And here's this video I was just watching.
This is how much you need to make to qualify for a $2.65 million home in Millbrae, California. Assuming you put 20% down and a 6% interest rate, your mortgage payment will be $12,710 a month. Including property tax and insurance, your total housing payment will be about $15,800 a month. Not including any other debts, you'll need to make about $400,000 a year or more to qualify. Wondering if you qualify? Send me a message and let's get you started.
So I wanted to show that video for context. Millbrae, California is in the Bay Area, in the peninsula. It's a solid neighborhood. It's a great place to live, great weather. But if you look at the house, it's a modern looking house. They remodeled it. But when you're paying $2.56 million for a house, you might be expecting like some of the nice ass mansion, but it's just a house, nothing too special. You wouldn't think that, wow, this is worth $2.65 million. And the cost, what they say, you need to make $400,000 a year to comfortably afford that mortgage. So that's really only possible if you have dual income housing and you and your spouse have to be at least software engineers or VPs at ideally a large tech company to be making that, or you would have to work at a startup and their equity absolutely goes crazy. Like for example, Cursor getting bought up for $60 billion. And you could then actually end up in Los Gatos or Los Altos, even nicer neighborhoods. But that just shows you how expensive some parts of the US are. obviously you can move to cheaper areas, but if you work in certain industries like finance or technology, this SF area is probably one of the best places you would want to be to do that. And then New York, finance and technology, but more on the finance side. But that's my point on housing, where it just feels so freaking expensive these days. If you don't have dual income, you don't have family that bought a house, multiple houses in that area 10 or 20 years ago, and now they have their children, they're able to live in it, and or you would have to be making bank. So, I could be complaining about all these things, but the solution is get your skill set up, get your money up, or get the fuck out. But this kind of brings me to my next point, and about the Ray Dalio thing. And I used to think that this guy's just a boomer, does not know what he's talking about. And I was like, shit, maybe he's right, because I spent a lot of time in Asia. Frankly, I think quality of life's a lot better. I smile a lot more. I'm more of a free person. I'm less stressed. I think people in general are less stressed in Asia. When I come back, especially in New York and America, I just feel like there's a tension in the air of people, they need to work to pay their bills, and things are getting expensive. I just feel it in the air. So let me share my screen really quickly. So I want to quickly explain this concept of the changing world order that I thought was complete bullshit until I began to experience in my life, from Ray Dalio. I just chat GPT'd it, so I think majority of the answers are right, but let me know if it's wrong. But I wanted to make it simple and high level to explain in this video. So Ray Dalio is saying world powers, they rise and fall in cycles. And he thinks the US-led world order is now under stress while China and other powers are rising. And I have to say, I'm kind of agreeing with that. Because I think the US is absolutely killing the game. When my parents decided to immigrate to this country in 1990s, 1980s, that America was the place to be, because my parents from Taiwan and Beijing, China, were looking for a place where they could have better economic opportunity. And the US provided that. They provided that meritocracy, the ability to build economic or wealth for their families. And my family would make money, send it back to their family, and it would help them, right? And we were living that American dream, got the nice house, got the good jobs, stable jobs, and done really well. And I think maybe I'm too idealistic now, but as I read these points, the US has been printing a lot of money. You can see in this first point here. And since 2020, when the steam chicks came out with COVID, and I think it really conditioned people that they don't need to work for the money or something. But I think the biggest thing is it just printed. It's a supply and demand. Now there's so much more money in the system, and devalues a lot of other things, so it makes prices go up. So I think that's one thing, and we're still continuing to print a lot of money, especially for the war efforts, but I don't want to get too political here. There's internal conflict, wealth gaps. You can see that. I especially see it here in Brooklyn. Even when you go into San Francisco, you got these really nice apartments, and then, man, I see a lot of homeless people just struggling outside. And in Asia, I rarely saw that. I think in Taiwan, I was starting to see it more, because Taiwan really has that capitalistic society in it, kind of like America. And there was way more homeless people than I saw when I was in Taiwan 5 years ago. But in Vietnam and China, I rarely saw any homeless people. External conflict, rising power tensions between US and China, okay. US dollar is powerful because it's the world reserve currency. Barter is that too much debt can slowly undermine that privilege. And I am noticing that undermining privilege. I think the US dollar strength has declined. Let me Google this. Did US dollar strength decline? So it's declined around 10%. The thing is, as I traveled around the world, people still love to accept the US dollar. I was in Vietnam. I was trying to exchange my Filipino dollars for Vietnamese dollars. No, we don't want that. I was like, do you want USD? They're like, yeah, we want USD. So I was like, okay. I mean, in the media, people say, and that's true, it's declining and it's strength by 10%, but people still want it. And it could be a slow decline, but still people still want it, you know? So, and then history repeats the patterns. He studied empires like Dutch, British, and American orders that follow a big cycle of education, productivity, innovation, wealth, global power, excess, and then decline. I mean, when I think about when I go to Europe, I go to Italy, I go to London, I feel like I'm just looking at old buildings. I'm learning about the Queen, I'm learning about 1800s history. I don't really give a shit about most of this stuff. And they're just talking about how great they were in the past. The British are absolutely murdering the game back in the day. Don't really hear about them now in the world order or the world news these days. So that's like something I'm noticing. And I think America is still very innovative in the terms of software and AI especially, but our AI is really expensive. And I still do believe in the ability for America to innovate. It's just, I think the main thing I'm saying is just the frontier AI leading models. They're doing a great job of keeping that in innovation for the US. I just wanted to share some things I've been ruminating on this changing world power. I'm not saying the US is going to decline and fall to nothing. I'm saying after being in Asia for 4 months, I've noticed that maybe the last great trade is global arbitrage. And when I'm in the US, I feel like I just focus on work, try to make money, don't spend too much money here, because I would rather spend it on a plane ticket to Asia because I know the value will be a lot better. And America's my home, but I feel like I am noticing a slight decline in the quality of life here. A lot of homeless, things are fucking expensive, but I can't complain about that. You just gotta get your money up and you gotta adapt or you move somewhere cheaper, you know? So that's my stream of thought video for today. And thanks for tuning in. Peace.